Shamba Chef and Don't Lose the Plot. So really excited to welcome Patricia. I just really thank you so much, Patricia, for joining us. And if you want to share your screen, you have the floor.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I will just share my screen now. So can you all see my screen?
We can, if we could get it into a presentation mode or perhaps maybe slideshow.
Yeah, let me do that.
Thank you.
You as a slideshow. There we go.
Brava. Thank you.
All right. So thank you so much for having me in this session. I'm so grateful to share our experience on what we do here at Mediae. And so thank you so much. And just, meeting everybody in this session, it's quite interesting. So I'll just give a little background of what we do here at Mediae. And basically what we do is we support education and development using media. So we do a lot of communication programs. So we do a lot of TV, radio, and also use print and mobile. And our model is very simple. We try and entertain and also meet people's informational needs. That way we build big audiences and we're able to serve both the commercial sector and the development sector. Just to give you a background where we started back with a radio program called Tembea na Majira, which means walking with the times. And we used to, feature a lot of social issues, a bit of agricultural issues. And it was a drama soap, so back in the 90s. And this went on for a period of about 8 years. And by the time it was getting to 2002, we found that our audience was actually reducing. So we were moving from an 8 million audience to about 2 million. So we decided to do some research to find out what was happening. And around that time in Kenya, what was happening is that the government had regulated the FM stations. So we no longer had just one radio station. We had now more stations coming in. These were FM stations, which was mostly music, and then a call-in session on how to get a good guy or, just really random stuff. And then the other thing that was happening around that time is that in the market, there was this little Great Wall of China TV set that was coming into the market. So people were then buying that and using a battery to, light it up and watch television. So radio was becoming sort of like a background issue. So with that kind of research, we decided, what, we needed to now shift and move into, television. So we started with, some television programs such as Makutano Junction, which has an audience of about 6 million. And with Makutano, we did a lot of issues. We did government issues. We did things to do with HIV and TB. We did agricultural stuff. And every time we did something on agriculture, it stemmed a lot of interest from people. So from our research, we found that our audience was, 70% was rural and peri-urban. So, we thought we needed to have something for them. So we started Shamba Shape Up. But even before we went on to Shamba Shape Up, we have, these are our main programs that we've been doing. So we have No Zone, which is a kids program, and it goes out every week. So kids who are in grade 2, 4, and 6, whatever they learn that week, they're able to watch it on Saturday morning. And then we have Mpeke Town, which is our drama series in Uganda, which focuses on getting youth, women, and families to look at farming as a business. So we're tackling a lot on climate change issues, financial access, how do you get people banked, how do they know how to grow their matoke? So there's a lot of issues we're doing that. Then we have Don't Lose a Plot. Don't Lose a Plot is interesting because it came from Shamba Shape Up. When we go looking for, farms, we found that the youth were not really engaging in farming. So we thought we needed to start something. So essentially, Don't Lose the Plot is a reality program where we have 4 young people, a boy and a girl from Kenya and Tanzania. So there are 4 people in one farm. And then each is given 1 acre of land to farm, and whoever made the most money in the most sustainable way won an investment back to their family farm. So that was really interesting. And then we have Shamba Chef, which is stems off from Shamba Shape Up, again, focusing on nutrition and clean energy. For those who maybe have not had the opportunity to watch Shamba Shape Up, I'm just going to play a little trailer about it. and then I can take you through, the impact. So. Great. So that is Shamba Shape Up, and essentially it's a makeover on smallholder farms. So what we do is, working with our partners, we go around looking for farms. We're not looking for perfect farms. So we look for farms that have problems. So for example, we may go to Mary's farm and she may tell us, I have problems with my beans. They're not producing as much, or my chickens are not laying enough eggs. Or, I planted some fruit trees and now they're not really doing well. So working with our experts, we go in and make it over. And the thing with Shamba Shape Up, it's not a talk-down sort of program. It's very entertaining. So we have two presenters and then we have the experts. So the presenters, they go in between to ask the questions as the farmers learn. So we've been doing this for the last 11 years. And what we tend to do is we start to broadcast in March in Kenya, because this is the growing season in Kenya. So we start tackling issues such as how to, you need to soil test, you need to use the right fertilizer, you need to use certified seeds. And then, we just follow the growing season. So towards the end, we're talking about, how do you harvest correctly? How do you access markets? So that's how we've been doing it. And right now our audience figures are about 8 million weekly, and we go out on Saturday and Sunday at 1:30. And this sometimes is repeated again in the short growing season in Kenya. So this is again from September to January. So the content is always, fresh. Working with partners, we are able to, co-create this content. And what we tend to do is, because we're not just creating a television program just for fun, is we also want to know, what do the farmers think? What do we know that are people actually learning anything from it? What are we doing right? What do we need to do more? So we do something called a CAP study. And a CAP study is basically, we're looking at the knowledge, attitude, and practice before the program airs, because we know what issues we are going to tackle. And we do that with 1,000 people. So 500 of them have a TV, 500 have a TV but don't watch the program. So, and then at the end of the series, we do the same thing. We do an end line. So we're going back, talking to 1,000 people. 500 of them have watched the show and have a TV. 500 of them have a TV and haven't watched the show. And our main thing is to try and, educate, because once people know, this is why I'm doing this is why I need to test my soil. This is why I need to use the right fertilizer. They're able then to link them to inputs. They're able to see the value of getting into inputs. And then once that is sorted, we're trying to also then link them to financial services, because a lot of farmers will not have the finances to, pick up some of these interventions that we're showing. And then at the end, we're also trying to link them to markets. So for us, this is the 4 areas that we try and focus on. One of the things that we did earlier in the series, I think after the 4th year, was there was a big piece of research done by Reading University, Buckingham, and it was funded by the AACF. And they went down to 13,000 farms and then scaled down to 2,500. And those people who had said they'd watched the show, they were asked, let me show you, let me know who the presenters are. Let's see your medicine cabinet, because we're only focusing on 2 things, maize and dairy. And we found that the direct access, the people who would watch the program and said they had made changes, we found that 428 thousand households had actually increased profits just by watching Shamba Shape Up and adapting some of these things. And these were simple technologies such as how to make silage. When it came to planting your maize, it was, are you using the right seed? Are you using the correct spacing? So it was a really big piece of research that was done around that time. Going on to Shamba Shape Up now, our main focus right now is on climate change adaptation. And this is for the next, 5 years. We've been doing this within every farm that we go. We're looking at something, like when we talk to farmers, they don't say it's climate change, but they say something to do with variable weather. So people will say, we knew it would actually rain on the 15th of March every year. But now when you ask them, they're like, oh, we're not sure if it's going to rain. We're not sure if these are the rains. So, it's basically variable weather. So what we've done is actually now adapted our content and into, climate change. And one of the things that we found is that people don't have knowledge on when it'll rain. So where do you get information about the weather? So, we've been running a campaign called Let It Rain. And here is we tell people to make a guess. Do you know when the rains will start in your county? And people will have all sorts of dates. And it's a competition, but we are also making it really creative that if you guess the right date, you stand a chance to win, $10,000 for the county. So, we've played that with people, and we also get more information from them. And then with that information, we are also giving them, different places that they can access, more about the weather. So those are some of the innovative things that we're doing. So in terms of, crops and different things that we're looking at, we're looking at crops, conservation, agriculture, livestock. We're also looking at financial inclusion, because a lot of these things cannot be done if you don't have, access to finance. With Shamba Shape Up, when we started, what we found that just doing a TV show was not enough. A lot of people would watch it, go into the website, find the company, find a number which was then linked to our director, David, and they would call him and say, you know what, my cow is sick, or, my maize is not doing well. So the more we got this, we decided we needed to back up more information for these farmers. And we started something called iShamba, and iShamba is essentially a backup system for Shamba Shape Up. So here we have a call center. Farmers are registered, and today we have 500,000 farmers on our database. We know where they are, we know what they're growing. And once a person watches Shamba Shape Up and they join, they're able to receive two things. They're able to receive information on maybe the crops and livestock that they choose. They also receive the weather information, for the area they are. They're also, we're also able to target them with very specific message. So for example, if Mary signs up from Kakamega, we find out where she is. She says she's interested in maize and beans and maybe dairy. We start asking her, how far is your maize, or I've just planted. So then she starts receiving very event-based messaging like, okay, you've just planted. In 3 weeks time, you need to, start weeding. Or if it's your cow, it's in calf, this is how you need to feed it until it calves down. So that's what we do. The weather is crucial for farmers because especially now, nobody knows if the rains are coming or not. So we work with different providers in order to get that information to people. What's interesting with iShamba is that with farmers who are actually we do have the freemium version and a premium version. The freemium version are for all the farmers who are in. We did pilots trying to get them after 3 years receiving this message to become premium farmers, but we only got a 2% sign up. People didn't leave, but people also did not want to pay for this information. So, we had also to think about. So what is interesting with the premium farmers is that they're on WhatsApp groups, and it's amazing. It has a lot of information. So how it works is we, work with the experts and with our content partners to develop these agri tips. The farmers receive them on their mobile phone as a text message. And then the farmers apply the tips and practices that they're getting. And that way they're able to, increase their yields. We've done a lot of research with iShamba just to see what the impact has been. And for example, with the potatoes farmers, we found that we did a thing where we had 2,000 farmers who received messaging, 2,000 farmers who did not receive messaging. And we found that the ones who received messaging doubled their yield. So an example of the WhatsApp group, which is really, really amazing. We've been working with GIZ. we found that it's evolved from people sending us pictures of the things that they're getting in terms of, oh, what disease is this, to more now farmers actually selling to each other. So, here's somebody asking for bomber rods, 50 bills, and there's someone who's saying, get in touch with this. So it's become a platform where farmers are also now speaking to each other in terms of markets and just developing a lot of linkages, because a lot of them are in the same area. So we have 5 different WhatsApp groups in different localities. The other thing that we found is when working with youth, we found that a lot of them don't have an idea of how much anything costs. So we decided to develop something called Budget Mkononi. And essentially, this is just a web-based thing that people can click in and say, I want to do chickens. And you want to start with 500 of them. And it kind of gives you a rolling budget. What do you need every week? What is required of you every week? And you can actually even just edit. So we have different value chains on it. We've also had a WhatsApp version for it, which has really, really worked well, especially with these younger farmers who, they want things quick and they want it on their mobile phones. Again, backing up all our information and all the stuff we do, we also do leaflets. We have a very interactive system behind us. We have Africa Knowledge Zone, where all our work is available, free for people to download. We are also on social media because, again, there's a lot of interaction with that. And we have iShamba, and also now the different value chain booklets that we also produce. What has been sort of like our key learning? We know that edutainment can drive affordable scalability. Using mass media is very powerful. We're reaching 8 million people every week with messaging. We know that through our research, we found that we can change behavior change just by showing people, something practical. So we're not showing it one time. It's not one documentary. It's something that has to be consistent over time, that people can see it many times. And that's the only way you can sort of like get behavior change. We also know that using the edutainment model does build big audiences. So, we started out at about 2 million viewers, and now we're at 8 million, and growing. So we know that using the model of edutainment can grow those big audiences, and that way support, the uptake of different agricultural activities. So that has been sort of like our experience. And we don't work alone again. We work with funding partners, because for us to be able to make the program, there's a cost to it. And then we also work with content partners. So, these are, the biodiversity, SIA, GIZ, who have the content and are wanting to scale it out. So that's essentially how we work on Shamba Shape Up. So recently, we just got funding from DEEV USAID to scale into Uganda. So we'll be producing a Shamba Shape Up version in Uganda. So it will be in English and Luganda. So everything will be based on the value chains that they're growing there. So very different from what we're doing in Kenya. And there's also a big piece of research being done. So there's an RCT component being done with it. We haven't done that before, but then it will be showing like what is the uptake of, some of these educational programs, and what are their impact when it comes to the economy. Are farmers going to actually make money? Are they going to increase their yields, and that way consequently, make money from that? So yeah, so in a nutshell, that's what Mediae and Shamba Shape Up is all about.
Oh, brilliant. This has just been amazing. And I see the comments coming in. Can we please give Patricia a round of applause? The kinds of comments you're getting are very interesting. Someone loved the concept of don't lose the plot, and so amazing. So you're getting lots of applause. Thank you so much, Patricia. What I'd love to do is open the floor and get some questions for you so we can learn from you in some other details. So Busani, do you want to take the floor? You have a question in the chat box. Getting a lot of wows. Busani, would you take the floor?
Thank you so much, Constance. Hi, Patricia. Delighted with your presentation. Great. I'll actually put out a question. I was just keen to understand how sustainable is the iShamba platform, given that you mentioned that farmers are not keen to, in fact, pay for information, and because how will you be able to scale this out? Maybe you could just tell us about your experience there.
Okay, thank you so much for that question. So with iShamba, yes, it's been difficult to get farmers because I think farmers all over the world are not willing to pay for information. Again, it's not a tangible, object that they have, so they don't know what exactly they're paying. So for us, what we've done is actually change our model. Instead of getting farmers to pay, we're working with partners who have farmers so that they actually pay for their farmers to receive that messaging. So for example, working with a commercial partner like M-Copper, who are going into the agricultural space, they have farmers who've taken these loans, either to get electricity or buy a water tank or drip irrigation. So what we do is when someone is signed up for that, we sign them up. So M-Copper gives us the contact, and M-Copper pays for this person to be a premium farmer. And this person, once they become a premium farmer, they're receiving messages from us. So what we do is, once we're giving them information, is that they then can farm better, make more money, repay their loan, and also respect this organization who's just not, out to get their money, but also is interested in their livelihoods. So we've done that with different stakeholders. So working with GIZ, they have, farmers in Western Kenya who are dealing in poultry. So they signed them up. We co-create the message with them, and then now start sending out this messaging. So that has been the model we are now using more and more, as opposed to farmers. We have like a 2% sign up with individual farmers who actually pay, and these are actually the more maybe urban farmers, the telephone farmers who are always calling and need all this information. Yeah, that has been our experience.
Wow, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that response. I just want to see if there are any other questions before I raise one, or Sabrina does. I can see that we're both available for questions. I guess I wanted to build on something that happened to us last week, which was very much about, working with scientists, and how do you cultivate good relationships with scientists, no matter your media. And I know that from my side, the scientists that I work with that have worked with you, they just love how you showed such an interest. So I wonder if you would make a comment about, befriending scientists so that you can get at some of that data. And then I can see that we may have another question in the wings. Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you so much for that question. Yes, for us, working with content partners and especially scientists, because I think what we found when we were starting Shamba Shape Up is that there was so much valuable information that was just sitting around and not really getting down to the farmers. And yes, and this was understandable. Scientists are doing what they're supposed to do, and really maybe dissemination was not, their key focus. So for us, it's been such a wonderful, collaboration, with the scientists. And I think for journalists, I think that should also be something that people should be harnessing, because there's a lot of information from these people. And then now just packaging that information from a very scientific way to a very simple way that somebody on the ground can kind of understand. So that co-creation and, of content together is really, really great. And some of the materials that are available are just excellent, just waiting to be taken and distributed to the various platforms. So I urge any, people in communication, journalists, yes, do make scientists your best friends.
Thank you so much for that. Mr. P, I believe it's Patrick. Do you want to take the floor? I see you have a question. Patrick, can you unmute? And if we can't hear you, let's just go ahead and read the question. Oh, Mr. P, I see you've unmuted. Please go ahead.
Yes, I just want to ask this question, which is, they said that about the Shamba Shape Up. In youth, we can say that we have the number of youth are now greatly increasing in numbers. And how do the youth involve in the information they gain from this program? At the same time, to be utilized on the ground, as far as the environment and the agriculture, it is concerned on environmental issue.
Great. Thank you, Mr. P, for that question. For us, youth and women are key focus in everything we do. So we've made it quite mandatory that when we're visiting farms, we're visiting very youth or women-led farms because we've made that decision. And this has been stemmed from years of doing this. We've been doing this for 11 years, and we found that the youth were not getting involved in farming. So we found that it would be the old folks just trying to farm, and those people are not really going to change so much because they just want to grow a bit of maize, have their one dairy cow. So they were not doing much. So for us, even when we are doing the show, the Shamba Shape Up show, we do bring in that conversation, even with the old folk. We'll be like, okay, but you have your 4 acres here, but your son John is he's just in town sitting in a boda. Why are you not, letting him farm? Because again, in Africa, land is a big issue. Land inheritance is a big issue. So for us, we're trying to, bring that on Shamba Shape Up, and that is what stemmed us to start Don't Lose the Plot. It was to show, and one of the interesting things that we saw when we were doing Don't Lose the Plot is that the youth did not want to farm the same things that their parents were farming. So they didn't want to do the maize. They didn't want to do the beans. They wanted crops that were actually coming to fruition much shorter. So they did, spinach and kale. They did onions. They wanted to keep chickens, things that their parents necessarily would not want to put. And we also really encourage that conversation within the family setups, even as we are actually doing, the show and filming.
Thank you so much. All right, we have, I think, about 3 questions in the wings, if you don't mind. First of all, we've got Chimwemwe. Would you like to ask your question?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, the question is, do you only work with media houses that deals with climate change or any kind of media houses? And what are the challenges that you are facing when you are working with those media houses?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. So the way we structure is that Mediae, we do the programming and then we broadcast on Citizen, which is the biggest broadcaster in Kenya. And the reason we do it, we give them the program for free. And the reason we do that is that because it has a larger audience than all these other TV stations, for us, it's getting that message out there. That being said, we don't limit. On our own platform. We have, the African knowledge zone that we put all our work. We're able to, again, let people download that work. So for us, the main actually challenge working with broadcasters is that in Africa and in East Africa in generally, you cannot, have the program in multiple choice, in multiple stations. There's no way Citizen will allow you to have Shamba Shape Up with them and then go to NTV, and they won't allow that, which is really selfish. But then, what to do? We don't have our own station. So that's been usually the biggest challenge. The other challenge is that in times when there is a drought, the commercial sector is not able to come in, and we need the commercial sector because you need to show the products, and the products have to be available to where the farmers are. So that's a challenge. And if there's an election year, and because we've built this big audience around Saturday and Sunday at 1:30, the politician will come and pay and get that slot because they know everybody's waiting for Shamba Shape Up. So those are the kind of challenges we experience.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you, Chimwemwe. Dr. Podisi, I just wanted to see if you wanted to make a comment or ask a question since you've joined us for this particular guest speaker. Right, see? And if I'm catching you off guard, I know that Sabrina has a question, but let me just check. Baitsi, would you like to ask a question or make a comment? Okay, I'm not seeing that, but I know that he's here and enjoying this. Sabrina, please.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much, Patricia. And I think, I hope you're seeing all the comments in the chat box about how much everybody's learning. So thank you so much for highlighting. I guess it's just trying to think about how to, obviously a lot of thought has gone into the story and the narrative. Maybe what tips you have for kind of our audience who are working in different, you know, radio programs or editorial, like how do you condense all that sort of knowledge into one story? You know, if they have to report on a climate or an agriculture related event and make the within their sort of medium. I guess it's just to say, how do you condense all the sort of like the narrative and the building that goes into something like Shamba Shape Up, and how do you take tips and skills from that into a shorter turnaround time, basically? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. So for us, I think we use a very simple communication strategy. The first thing is, who do we want to talk to? So who are we speaking to? Once we've identified who our audience is, are we talking to people in the rural community? You know, what sector are we saying? And then what do we want to tell them? That's crucial to us. So it's climate change, but what do we want to say? Then how are we going to tell it to them? So for us, that's a very simple way we try and, you know, create a narrative. And then one thing our director does, our executive director, is he puts us to task and tells us to write things to do with climate change as if you're writing a letter to your grandmother. So it has to be in the simplest language possible, you know, because that's the way the audience will understand it. So for us, it's again, crafting, sitting down with different content partners, and then just coming up with creative ways of how do we, you know, communicate this in a 3 minutes video or in a 5-minute segment. So very simple. So, you know, who, what, and how are we going to say it?
Oh, I
Brilliant.
like that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I don't know if there's any other, are there any other questions for Patricia? I know we've kept you a little while, so I just wanted to round up if there are any more questions from the floor. No, it doesn't look like it. So yeah, thank you. Well, Patricia, we'll make sure to share all the links, and we're creating kind of an event page for the whole series with all the recordings, etc. And then we'll make sure to, I just put into the chat about the African Knowledge Center as you mentioned it, but we'll make sure to share everything. And just yeah, just really a huge thank you on behalf of everybody here for just a really insightful presentation and lots of tips and advice for the participants. So a big thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this session.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you so much. And we'll be making sure to kind of loop you into the follow-on sort of correspondence with us. And a big thank you also from our colleagues. I know you guys are doing a lot of work within ACRA, the program we're working in. So we're excited to see that grow and those extend. So yeah, really nice to connect.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks so much, Patricia.
Thank you.
Well, following Patricia and the really kind of insightful sort of energy and showing like I think everyone would agree that the numbers and the scale that they've reached by kind of harnessing the power of story